What made you break up with the person you thought you'd marry? 1. I lost my father and get ignored me for a week. BC I went out with my friends to distract myself. 2. Told me he'd shoot his face off if I was ever happy with anyone but him. Went back with him to visit his family in the UK for a month. I'm Chinese. He's Scottish and found that he's an extremely selfish, self-centered spoiled brat and his family thinks he is an angel and expected me to bow to him as they all did. Worst of all, he was never this way when we were dating here in my country where he's an expat, but his true colors shone when he was back with his family. Sorry for what happened, but at least you dodged a serious bullet. That kind of ego would be heck on you. A good way to analyze who someone is by seeing how they act with the people they're most comfortable with, and you definitely saw that with them being around their family. He's an absolutely wonderful dude. He just thought I was a different person than I really am. He and I met during a very stressful point of my life, and he thought that if I quit doing all the things that made me me, like volunteering, being a workaholic, helping my family, I'd be perfect. In the end, when the crazy subsided, I landed a job that makes me the happiest ever, via the volunteering I was doing, and my family stabilized and isn't quite as crazy as before. We're both married to other people now, and thanks to social media I can see that he chose well, and is super happy. I'm happy here, and honestly, I'm really grateful for the way it all worked out. Nothing wrong at all with him, and he deserves all the goodness in life he has. You're a good person. We figured out that while we love each other, we don't like each other as often as we used to. We were becoming less and less close physically and emotionally, and even getting lost in our travel adventures could only keep us together for so long. Oddly, she could be one of those sweetest, most thoughtful people you'll ever meet, but could flip a switch at the silliest times. Real mind frick. Breaking it off after 6 years was one of the most adult and most painful things I've ever done in my life. I made 5 women cry that day. Her, our moms and my sisters. I also cried like a girl. I half joke that I may end up just dying alone to avoid a mess like that again, lol. This made me really sad. Blackout drinking and raging. Hangovers. Fights. Walking on eggshells all the time. Lack of emotional, financial security, immaturity. I couldn't leave easily because she knew about something illegal that could get me in trouble, and she was capable of drunkenly posting it on Facebook or letting the cops know, even though she profited from it too. Our sex started to die off in the bedroom and she started to lock her phone and message late at nights, with smiles that I never got anymore. After a long trip alone to her hometown to see her parents and friends, alone by herself. We were drinking late with other friends and afterwards she drunkenly broke down and confessed that she slept with someone. In my mind I was like, frick yes. Score B fricked up, lost the moral high ground, and all I had to do was stay the course and act hurt. Still helped her to settle her matters, etc. She went on to continue drinking hard and fricked up her life. After 2 years I came to admit that I'm fricked up also, and also an alcoholic, and quit drinking. Through our stop drinking and AA. Her dog is with me and I love her to bits. My girlfriend and I have a rule about eggshells. If we ever get the feeling we're walking on them, it is our immediate job to smash them and talk about whatever it is, even if we don't know how to verbalize it yet. We both had relationships where eggshell dancing was the norm and decided it's some balls. She slept with my roommate and my other roommate and friends walked in on them mid-doggy. Rip my inbox. I'll answer what I can. She cheated on me multiple times on her trip to Europe, which she is still on. I saw the Facebook messages on the computer where she was still logged in. Then she lied when I called her on it. This all happened about 4 hours ago. I'm at a bit of a loss. I was planning our engagement. I'm glad it happened now, I guess. Very rough though. Hang in there, buddy. It will get better. It got to a point where he wasn't working or going to school, and just totally lacked ambition. After all the support and trying to push him to do more, I was done. This is my old roommate's story. We'll call him Mark. On my phone. Excuse the errors. We were renting a house at the time. 3 dudes. We all had day jobs and we would cook dinners most nights. Pretty great roomy situation. Everyone was chill and any issues were resolved quickly between us. Mark starts dating this girl. He was pretty proud of himself. For good reason. She was a solid 10. Seemed like a great girl. She would often come over in the middle of the day and clean our place, do all of our laundry, buy groceries, just because. It was awesome. She worked as well, just had flexible hours, home care or something. So one day Mark proposes to her, with this big fat diamond ring. Everyone is happy, we have a big party. In the months planning their wedding she starts eating, like, a lot. She goes from 120 pounds to probably close to 200 in about 6 months time. Not really a huge issue for Mark. He loves her, but then she starts acting kinda crazy. I am fairly confident she has developed a cocaine problem at this point. We get a series of traffic tickets in her name. She was basically living there at this point, including a fantastic pic of her running a red light while stuffing a huge hoagie into her face. One day I came home early and she scurried out of the house as I was coming in. We later discovered she had taken our other roommate's baseball card collection he had been gathering his entire life. She sold them to some sketchy pawn shop. She was no longer allowed in the house. She pawned her engagement ring and that was the last straw. Mark broke off the engagement, and that night she got good and cracked out, came to the house around midnight, kicked the front door in, and she pulled a Jack Nicholson from The Shining on his bedroom door. Once she made it and she beat the crap out of him. So what was to be a nice happy wedding turned into a huge headache and a restraining order. To this day it is the prime example I use when explaining how a person can pull a complete 180 personality wise. We weren't engaged or anything, but I thought he would be the one I would be with till the very end. But then my dad died and he not once asked if I were okay or offered any kind of support. That's when I realized that we just don't have the same values where it matters, so I broke up with him. We have remained really good friends though and still hang out sometimes. We started dating in high school and had the typical first love relationship. We moved to another state for college and he just completely changed. Well, I guess we both did in our own ways. I was bored in the relationship and he had no ambition whatsoever, unless it was just one of his music projects. He got kicked out of school twice and held a job only like a month the whole time I was in school. I was the only income for us until graduation. I worked 2 jobs during school on top of my clinical rotations. He always needed some new piece of equipment. In my head I didn't realize I could leave the relationship. I finally had enough when I had a death in the family and decided I would go alone so he could take care of trying to get in school for the 3rd time. He made it all about him, that he knew my family didn't like him and was demanding to know why they don't want him there. Not once asked how I was doing either. He bugged me the whole time I was trying to take care of my family too. My sister was talking to me about how she was deciding to leave her husband when it clicked. I didn't have to stay with him even though we were engaged. When I returned home, I told him I would still help him get in school, but only as a friend. I wasn't a priority and he couldn't decide if he wanted to commit. If after 4 years you don't know what you want, then I think it's pretty clear. I'm currently going through this now. It's heartbreaking when I'm ready to give him my all. As we grew, his charm dissipated. When I was 18/19, he didn't have a job so we could always be together. He was messy, bit so was I. He played video games day but it was fun. At 27, I was working full time and getting my BA. He was still jobless. I worked my butt off. He played video games. I cleaned the house. He didn't clean crap. I grew up. He didn't. That's so freaking important. We don't have to remove ourselves from our hobbies, but we have to grow up. OHH super easy answer. Dude was a douche and hit me across the face. Also couldn't hold down a job, but you know, mostly the face thing. I didn't want any kids and I wanted to be allowed to work. He wanted a housewife and a large family. I was willing to settle on a compromise. 2 kids and I still got to work. He left me for it because I wouldn't be exactly what he wanted. He married someone else later who did exactly what he wanted and he was miserable with her and was attempting to take a mutual friend as his mistress. I dodged a bullet. Never compromise on kids. Creating people is not something you want to regret. After being together 6 years, we're engaged, and then we had a child. He suddenly became jealous that he wasn't the center of attention anymore. He didn't even bring me and the baby home from the hospital when I was sick and had to hold a crying baby and puking because he was out with friends and didn't want to help me. That was the last straw. I left with my child and never looked back. He continues to live a pathetic life 15 plus years later. I've been engaged twice. First one ended after meeting my family for the first time. My fiance made fun of my brother, who is very intelligent but sometimes socially awkward, for half the ride home. I slept on it, then gave the ring back the next day. Frick that guy. The second engagement. We dated for 3 years and got engaged after 2. The closer it got, the more he decided he wanted to have children immediately, wanted me to stay home with them, and then said, knowing that, I'm wondering if it's worth it for you to continue grad school. I was just starting my second year of my master's program. Bye bye. As someone else who is socially awkward, thank you for sticking up for your brother. Our relationship was 90/10. I would do everything. Take care of everything. Pay for everything. Always be the first one to message, or call or suggest plans. She put hardly any effort into us at all and I know I deserve more than that. I asked her to marry me and she said no. It's been 7 months since then and now she's trying to get back with me saying she's made a mistake. Said I was the only voice of reason in her life and she feels so lost without me. I don't even know how to feel about that. I don't want to be anyone's savior. I used to be with someone whom I dreamed of one day be my better half. I planned ahead, thinking that she's the one, even though she's a negative thinker and so jealous on every woman I knew. I kept on telling myself it's normal because she loves me. There's also some instances that she's accusing me of cheating whenever I cannot reply to her messages instantly. The final straw was when she cheated on me. This is not the first time it happened but the 4th time. Yeah, I know. I'm such a dumbass. The first one was after I went abroad to work. In just 2 weeks, she got into a relationship in which she admitted. The other 2 is, she was talking to another guy behind my back. That's why you cheaters should delete your conversation. And the last one was she had sex with another guy. There are things men can forgive but having to another guy while still in a relationship is one of the worst thing you can do to your partner. She begged for forgiveness and asked me to take her back in which I declined. I love her but I need to love myself more. Years forward, she is in a relationship and messaged me to ask for forgiveness. To me and my family, my mom really loves her, in which I forgave her. I stopped talking to her when she keeps on justifying her actions as to why she cheated on me. I won't let her negativity in my life anymore. We had an intense attraction to each other but there were 2 reasons I had to walk away. First is he was very jealous and controlling. I couldn't say hi to someone in passing without getting grilled about who he was, how I knew him, was I talking to him secretly, did I wish I was dating him, etc. Second, our ambitions didn't match up. I wanted more out of life than he did. I wanted the professional degree and he wanted to work on cars. There is nothing wrong with that at all but our paths to our preferred destinations took us in very different directions. I still think of him and wonder but have been happily married for more than 25 years. She became very dependent on me. She didn't have many friends, nor any opportunities to go out and make any. She didn't have drive to do anything, rather just sit at home and do nothing. No motivation to play any sports or get a job. This sabotaged my life as I'd always be spending time and money on her because she couldn't afford anything herself. She ended being an emotional toll as she had mental issues and I thought leaving her would just make it worse. But I'm so glad I left. It lifted a weight off my shoulders and allowed me to achieve a lot more than I was when I was with her. I was in nursing school at the time he and I got together. I was in a transitionary period in my life where my career wasn't set, so I rationalized that it was okay that he worked a minimum wage job at 30 years old. After all, I wasn't sure where my life was headed either. A few years into our relationship, and we talked about marriage a lot. He was still working a low wage, dead-end job but his 6th such job in 2 years, with no clear plan at all. Any such attempts to lead him into a well-paying job was always met with negativity and dismissal. He could work overtime, though, at his pizza job. He told me that he was going to save up money to buy me a ring. Instead, he bought a $2,000 mountain bike that sat in our garage. He never worked out or enjoyed active things, so it was a purchase that didn't make sense. He never saved for my ring but still talked about marrying me. I hated going into my garage after that. Fast forward a year later, and I'm a nurse. He is working a new minimum wage job, his 8th in 3 years, and spending all of my money on things like gun parts, a clunker of a car he was going to fix up, and a ton of other hobby items that he never used and eventually sold for half its value. It came down to the fact that I knew I'd have to support him and any kids we might have, which would be no easy featuring with his reckless spending habits that put us in the red every month. It also didn't help that he refused to do household chores and spent his free time playing video games while I hiked, kayaked and went out to social gatherings that he refused to go to. We grew apart. I know my career growth had a lot to do with it, and I think that maybe I was too distracted during school to really see that we weren't right for each other. A month after we looked at rings together, with these tiny shards of diamonds he got from his father that he wanted to incorporate into a ring but were too small and old, I decided we were better as friends and called it quits. I still feel terrible about it because we had so much fun together. We simply weren't compatible enough to go long term. I think the final nail in the coffin was when he told me he wasn't sure he wanted to have kids anymore, and he knew that was a deal breaker for me, who desperately wants them. We broke up 3 years ago. He now has a baby girl and seems happy. I'm dating an amazing man I hope prioritizes me over a mountain bike. I can relate to some of the things in your post. I just wanted to say I am glad you found a partner that has similar priorities. My ex and I met in our early 20s working at a restaurant. Over the next decade I got a doctorate and he stayed in similar job. I also no longer care for partying like I am 20. We grew apart too. She fricked 3 dudes her very first semester away at college. Call me naive for thinking I'd marry my high school sweetheart, but at 20 I believed it. Different priorities and my one-sided hope. I was in early 30s and he was in mid-20s. Been friends for years. Dated for half a year. Met his friends and families. I had high hope we would get closer and get married. He still wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to settle down. Our family opposed. And that's it. The end of our friendship as well. I realized after 6 years that we weren't happy. The relationship had gone nowhere. He would rarely communicate, and I was getting needy due to neglect. One day something finally clicked in my head and I ended it. It was a mutual ending that went way too smoothly. The fact that it didn't seem to affect him made it a lot easier. But we're still friends and I'm happy I still have him in my life. Couple reasons. The way we deal with problems, personal and interpersonal, is different. He likes to hash it out then and there, while I like to ruminate process for a few days while I form my thoughts on it. It makes it seem like he's confrontational and I'm passive aggressive, which began to wear on us. It was fine at the time, but we knew in 10 years we wouldn't be able to stand one another. He requires more physical contact and affection than I do. We tried to compromise, but it ended up that I felt trapped and he still felt neglected, so it was sad for both of us. The deal breaker. Turns out I'm gay. Well, the deal breaker clears up the physical contact aspect. Almost 2 years into our relationship I had my first set of seizures. He made me go to the alone because he was tired. We were in college at the time, and I ended up having to go home for a semester to get everything figured out with my health. When I came back, I found out he had pretended I just was keeping myself locked in my room all the time whenever our mutual friends would ask where I was. This hurt a lot of feelings until they found out what actually happened. He admitted to being embarrassed at one point before I came back for the summer semester, and he didn't want anyone to know. He expected me to get it fixed and to be done with it. I ended the relationship and made it very clear that I didn't want to be around him anymore. I ended up seeing a lot of ways that I dodged a bullet through talking to friends about things he did while I was gone. I met the man I did marry about 2 years later. I was very clear about my epilepsy and what it entailed before we even started dating. I've had a lot of struggles with medications and seizures since, but he's helped me through all of them. He has never been embarrassed about it or told me how I should handle it. I think he cheated on me. I honestly thought I could get over cheating, but as it was proven, I can't. I could never trust him again, and there is no relationship without trust. He also took me for granted, and I am not going to accept someone who is that comfortable with making me miserable. I really thought he was the love of my life though. I came home from work and all of her stuff was gone. The apartment was empty. So I was all like, B, I'm not putting up with this. You're gone. I sure showed her. First one. A massively jealous girl with a gigantic lack of self-confidence and serious dependence issues. She literally threatened to kill my exes and female friends and colleagues. Plus she was a hardcore Satanist studying gender studies. She later married an Eskimo. We are from Europe and moved to Greenland. I'm not kidding with any of this. Second one. A super temperamental girl with difficulties separating surrounding facts from her emotionally charged opinions. Even the smallest misunderstanding could be turned into hours of competitive shouting, and eventually she would try to start hitting me. When I stopped her from physically beating me by holding her hands until she would stop, I was the abusive monster not able to love anyone. Oh, and apparently she also knew what I was thinking better than me myself. Third one. This was actually my best relationship until that moment of life, but in the end the famous click was missing. We were more like roommates with benefits, so that didn't work out in the long run. I wish her all the best. I've literally worked my way through 9 long-time girlfriends and a plenty of short-time GFs in a backwards manner. I've learned from them many things I do not want to have in my life. Current girlfriend is golden and I love her to bits. From the other side of the coin, I was the dumped, but I can understand why. We were very much in love, very much besotted with each other. But I took that for granted and I did not work at our relationship. She was a very ambitious lady, not for money or power, but for self-improvement and improving others' lives. I was, and still am, a self-loathing coward whose every action or inaction was motivated by fear. I had no ambitions other than spending my life with her. She moved to America, and I was to join her, but I crumbled without her. As the days turned into weeks and into months, I still hadn't made any inroads to joining her. I didn't know how. It seemed so beyond me. I loved her with all my mind and heart and professed it daily, but did not show it through action. She was, and I assume still is, an amazing woman. Strong and brave and smart and funny. She left me in 2004 and it destroyed me. And though I confessed it felt out of the blue, it wasn't. I told her she broke my heart. She told me I had been breaking hers for a long time. She was right. I've never really been able to move on. I'm still the scared little boy who she knew would end up becoming the albatross around her shoulders. I'm 42 now, unemployed, living between my sister's living room and my mum's apartment, completely broken by anxiety and depression. She made the right choice because she was too amazing, too ambitious and willing to work at a relationship that I was not because I thought it was perfect. Never take love for granted, because the pain of losing it may fade, but it always lingers and never really dissolves. Last I heard she moved back home and went to law school. If I had to guess I would say she works for some organization that helps people, but I can only guess as I stopped communicating with her. For her sake or mine, I don't know. 42 is not so old that you can't get your crap together. Seek help mentally. It sounds like you know your issues. Get the help you need to break free of them. Good luck, friend. He was a man-child. He claims to have changed now. But, after 4 years of things will get better, things didn't get better when they needed to get better. I realized I was too young and that we had ignored some red flags. Yeah, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque and ended up in China a few times, too. High school sweethearts. He started making jokes like you can't rape your wife. I was done. Then his parents doubled down and told us that they'd sign the form to allow us to get married before 18. He developed a drug habit, and I found out later that he ended up having a baby with severe deformities with someone else. Poor kid. Didn't make it. Neither did he. Cancer before 30. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.